Hey guys, this is Editor Matt. In true Paint Bravely fashion, we have some audio issues this week. We had to pull audio from Brent's camera and laptop mics, so his audio sounds a lot different this week. Also, his cats got a little rambunctious, and I left them in because I thought it was hilarious. Alright guys, enjoy the podcast.
What is up, guys, and welcome back to Paint Bravely, the podcast where you can find a little bit of encouragement, discover new ways to make your hobby more fun, and most importantly, learn to paint bravely. And we got a pretty fun episode for episode 51. A little bit of back and forth, some hobby stuff we've been doing, as well as a pretty fun topic, I think. So why don't we jump right in and see what Brent's been up to? What have you been doing since the last podcast, man? Painting anything? Doing anything?
Okay, this is gonna tie right into the main topic of the day, but I've been painting with craft paints. And so the main topic of the day isn't craft paints, don't worry. The main topic of the day is gonna be, okay, if your house burned down, or you moved to a new country and you didn't have a very large moving truck to take you to the new country, or you flew across town to paint at a friend's house. So what I'm saying is, if you lost your entire collection of paints and had to start over, what would you get? And so this is kind of like the question of where does a new painter start? What would you recommend as a paint line for new painters? But with a little bit more of that experience in there, that fresh start, that this is the core of my painting experience, and this is what I want to use for the next phase of things. And thinking about fresh starts is fun, in a video game. Hey, it's fun to just start a new save file sometimes. Just load up a new Minecraft world, just start again in Elwyn Forest with your I was gonna say Gnome Road, but you gotta start in the Icelands for that. But you know what I'm saying. It's fun to get a little fresh start. So what we're gonna talk about is essentially like beginner paint kits, but not like craft paint level beginner.
Yeah, okay, yeah. I mean, so, I'll be honest.
Is this not how you understood this episode, Casey?
Not how I understood what was happening.
Neither of us know what this episode is going to be about. So last episode was episode 50. I think it turned out all right. Next episode is episode 52. And that's the 2-year mark. Right. And so, I mean, sitting here right now, I can say that we're going to try a little bit harder for the 2-year mark. Maybe what we'll actually do is we'll try a little bit harder for episode 53.
Right, that's the fresh start, right?
First episode of the 3rd year. Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, episode 51, worst case, it's a stinker. But we've got a half-formed idea here to talk about paints. And I'm going to start it off by talking about craft paints. So, I'm actually doing my first sponsored episode on Goobertown Hobbies, and I feel super weird about it, and I don't know if I'm ever doing this again. But the Fart Quest sponsored me, so they're paying for an episode on Goobertown Hobbies, and they actually have almost like chibi characters for 4 of the main characters in this children's series. And so there's Fart, also known as Bartok the Brilliant. You got Moxie, Dwarven Warrior. You got Pan, the Elven Monk. You got TikTok, who's a little frog guy, but he's not a frog guy. He's a fiddling, and the difference is very important. So yeah, I've been painting chibis, and anyway, the book series is aimed at kids age 8 to 12. So like, all right, we're doing back to basics on this. This is start here if you are on like allowance money for taking the trash out. So look, I obviously already had a set of Craft Smart paints. I did go to Walmart, pick up a few select apple barrels to really round out that collection. And then I went at it, you know. I got my paper plate out. I loaded up my paper plate with some craft paints, and did sometimes multiple layers of trying to thin these paints out. I ended up with some fun little things. Did a beginner tutorial, and so, Casey, what has your experience been painting with craft paints?
I mean, to be honest, not the best, right? Like, I think most of my experience has been with Apple Barrel and folk art. I think the folk art might be a little bit nicer, like just a little bit. In fact, I've used folk art paint for Warhammer models before. They have color shift paints that actually work pretty well through an airbrush.
Oh, yeah.
So like that's not bad. Otherwise, it's just a coverage issue. Like, you're gonna have to do more layers, right? Generally speaking.
Oh, absolutely. Oh.
Yeah. There goes Brent again. This is what I'm talking about. It's episode 51. How many times does Brent get up in an episode? This is like the 50th time, at least 50 times. So anyways, using the craft paints.
Right.
Is, yeah.
I mean, your point is valid. You just kind of have to do more layers. So
generally,
thin them out with water, and there's a lot of times where if you were using a miniature paint, it would take 2 layers. Instead, you're doing 3 layers. And for some of the tricky colors, like there was like a yellow-green cloak that was definitely at least 4 layers. But honestly, that color would have been 3 layers with mini paints anyway. So.
Probably, yeah. I mean, there's always the tricky colors. So, you know, if you're starting off with paints like that, then you're just going to run into that. I still don't know if I'd ever recommend anyone paint models with craft paints, just because you might not have as good of a time. Like, there's the danger, right, of running into like, well, I had to do 10 layers of this one color and it turned out like this, or it looked like this, where maybe if you were painting with a little bit thicker model paint, you know, even if you did 2 layers, it wouldn't be as thick as like, you know, so you might not feel as bad about it and continue painting and improving, you know. I mean, when I started painting, I pretty much just got Citadel paints, and this was like the mid 90s. And that's just what there was, right? Like, so it seemed fine. Like, I'm painting models, I'm gonna buy that paint. I don't know. And that was definitely like an allowance type thing. Like, I had to work for that stuff. So, you know, I took care of it and kept it and hoarded it, and you know, I still have some of those paints today. I've transferred them into dropper bottles, in fact, like what was left.
Of course you did. Of course you did. As you should.
Yeah.
So to be very clear, I do not recommend people paint with craft paints. But the point of this was more like everybody has craft paints in a cupboard somewhere.
Yeah.
Don't tell me you don't. You have some craft paints somewhere in your house or apartment right now. You know you do. And yeah, if you were, probably if you're listening to this podcast, you've painted before. But if the point of my little episode there was just, if you have never painted a mini before, the barrier to entry can actually be very low to get your first hit, you know? And so just a little bit of a nudge to see if we can get just one more pathway into this hobby for folks. You know, I mean, these days a bottle of mini paint is $4 at least.
Yeah.
So you know, instead, if you want to spend that $4 on like 7 Apple Barrel paints, that's
right.
You
know, speaking of which, though, I went into the Dollar Tree yesterday, and it was no longer $1. They changed all their signage. Everything was changed out. It's $1.25 now. Everything.
It's actually an interesting way to do it. Everything's just $1.25 now.
Yeah.
They
just changed everything.
Huh.
I mean, that's a 25% increase. That's not horrible.
I mean, it is, but I was expecting the way to go them to go the way of other dollar stores, and like there's some stuff over here for $2,
like the
this
dollar
is the
plus
$3
kind of thing,
bin. Yeah. Huh.
Now this is a Dollar Tree.
Probably
They
need to start cycling in their stock so that they actually have items that are worth double other items or 3 times
Right.
other items.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they just like go through all of their previous $1 stuff and like these are now $3.
Mm-hmm.
I guess these will be $2. That would be even stranger, honestly.
Yeah, it would be.
It takes time for them to rotate in the $2.50 stock. You know?
Right.
Yeah.
Their paints are still terrible though. I wouldn't
I
recommend
bet they
it.
are. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, for the price of a foot-long sandwich at Subway, you know, especially like if you're the sort of person who springs for the full-on sweet onion chicken teriyaki, or you got your, you know, whatever that ranch special is, if you're willing to spend that kind of sandwich or burrito money on some apple barrel paints, you got yourself the color wheel, you got yourself some gray tones, you got yourself some browns, and some paper plates to put it on, you know?
That's true.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's
so
it's
for the
good
price of a
training.
burrito, you can definitely give mini painting a try, and you'll be like, okay, this is kind of cool, but I hate working with these. And then you can try,
Right.
swapping out for some real paints. Not the best. Like if you know you're getting into mini painting, you just buy some paints. Like
Right.
But pony up the $40-$50 for a set of some real paints, you know, real mini paints.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about. That's kind of the real topic of the day. But
Yeah.
mini paints, I mean, a few of them were not too bad, and then some of them were really bad. There was like a deep forest green that this was definitely a folk art. It was actually the first folk art I'd used. Like I was using the Craft Smart, and they're like, okay, these are all right. Like not good, but they're all right.
Yeah.
And then the first folk art I cracked open was this forest green, and I squirted it onto my plate, and it just came out like a perfect cylinder that didn't ooze. That just was like a tiny green hot dog that just like sat on the plate and stared at me.
Right. You gotta somehow break that down.
Jabbing it with my paintbrush, trying to get it to thin out. And I mean, I used it, but it was not good.
How long have you had that one though?
I bought it on Tuesday.
I wonder how long it's been at the store. I mean, I think their consistency is not usually that of like hot dog without casing. So I don't know.
Right. Well, then I had a couple other shades of folk art that I was using, and they were whatever. It was an apple barrel. Sorry, I didn't mean to disparage folk art. Forest green, that apple barrel forest green, not good. Anyway, the other apple barrel paints I got were actually much better.
That's good
than that first one. So. Yeah, you win some, you lose some.
I mean, with that kind of paint, I feel like a lot of it is kind of a crapshoot because, you go to somewhere like Michael's or something, the craft store, and they have like thousands of them in one aisle. And it's like, how often do people really cycle through those paints? How long have they been on the shelf? Some of them been cracked open a little bit. Is something going on? Like, you never know the kind of consistency you're going to get out of those bottles. So, yeah.
I think they last years. But...
I mean, they do if they're closed. Otherwise, I don't know.
Yeah. And anyway, I did get some models out that look pretty good. Is like, hey, a beginner could, in theory, do this if they were patient enough.
Yeah. I mean, the models you painted do look good for being craft paint.
Hey, thanks, buddy. So. Anyway, that's what I've been up to. What have you been up to?
I've been up to a few things. Painting the Robute Guillemot. Oh yeah. Space Marine. Yeah, that was fun.
No backpack,
Robute. Yeah, I found the cool model on eBay. I bought it and I painted it. And basically the idea was kind of as a palette cleanser almost. I mean, it was.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I've been doing like all these big projects lately, and I've just been kind of like, man, I just need to do something fun, like just a one-off, who cares kind of thing. So, yeah, I don't know. I picked a Space Marine. Like, he's a fancy Space Marine.
Oh, of course you did.
But still.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, it was good. I liked it. It was fun. It turned out all right. I finished building a Stormcast army. Built it, and I primed it, and it is ready for paint. So,
did you pick your colors?
Yeah, I'm ready to go on color. Because I did like a testing video a couple months ago for it, talking about Stormcast models. So like it's ready to go.
Oh yeah, you did. Yeah.
Got some dragons, all the dragons. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. I've just been working on all sorts of like jumping from one project to the next. I spent $200 and bought an Iron Jaws army off of eBay like a week ago. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's go down this path. So this is all I'm going to say about it, but Games Workshop did raise their prices recently, or announced that they're doing their yearly price hike.
Sure.
And so now's a good chance to remind everyone of the secondhand market. And how are things looking out there, Casey? What's the landscape over on eBay?
It's about the same, really. Like, price is still low. Like,
I mean, have you noticed more of any one, army?
That's a good question, actually.
Less. What about more AOS versus 40K? I assume there's always more 40K.
There's always a lot more 40K, actually. Yeah. By many thousands, like tens of thousands of auctions. Probably triple, quadruple the amount. Unfortunately, AOS stuff is a little bit difficult to find sometimes, and a lot of it kind of cycles. It depends on what boxes have come out recently. Obviously, Dominion was the most recent starter, so man, you can get some Dominion for cheap right now. Like, you can pick up either half of that box for like $60. Like, it's a sweet deal. That. And I mean, that's Stormcast half. Yeah, it's like 1,100 points of Stormcast. So if you want a Stormcast army, $120, you got one. Yeah.
Really, every year, that is one of my favorite things to look up. Like, whatever the starter box is for 40K, whatever the starter box is for AOS or Fantasy or whatever.
Yeah.
Look on eBay for the people who just divided those big boxes down the center.
Yes.
And are selling at a fair discount.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's one of the better half prices that I've ever seen is all of the Dominion half for $65 shipped. So that's an option.
I mean, okay, so this kind of does lead into the main topic a little bit that I thought we were going to be covering. The idea, because you brought up like, what if your house burned down? What if something like that happened? Unfortunate as it might be, it does happen. But like, if I didn't have any models, I didn't have any paints, I didn't have any supplies, like, what would I actually want to go out and get, right? Like, if I had some cash and I was going to go run out and grab some stuff, like picking up half an army or even a full army for less than $200 is a pretty sweet option. Like, why not? You got lots of good models to pay. And all of the models in that Dominion box on both sides are really nice. I mean, you might not think so for those Cruel Boys.
I'm not a fan of that type of orc. I mean,
sure.
Yeah. Look, we don't need to get back into whether or not grots are supposed to be able to safely handle explosives.
Yeah.
The idea of a box that sells 20 grots and all of them seem to be throwing a grenade with proper technique. We've been over this. We've been over this. We don't need to drag that.
We don't need to rehash that or anything. But I'm just saying
the quality of the models is very good.
That's true.
The artistic inspiration.
You leave something lacking.
Just a bunch of very safe people sculpting those goblins with explosives. That's all I got to say about that.
And I'm fully on the 2 thumbs up for the Cruel Boys side. Like, I'm down.
Yeah.
Anyways, point is, if your house burnt down, go buy a Dominion box. Like, that's a good way to go.
It's like the people who designed grots, like sobered up, got a day job, got a 9 to 5, like really, got into gardening, just really got into baking bread.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, you know what? It's time to revisit the Orc and Goblin line.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And these goblins are trying to come home safe to their little goblins. That's what they're thinking about when they leave the house.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe these are a smarter bunch of orcs this time around. They've got some tricks. I don't know. Like, I don't know. They got like crazy monsters that like have stuff on their back. Like they've somehow tamed these wild beasts to like be their mounts and carriers, and I don't know. Like, they look stupid. I like it.
So that's an option. I always like to check in with you about how things are going on eBay, but of course you could be lying to us because you need to game the system. You need to stay like 5 steps ahead of everybody else.
That's a good point. See, that's my whole channel. That's the whole goal, right? Is I point everybody, like, it's like a red herring type of thing. I'm just like over here holding this thing up, saying, everybody look over here. Well, I'm getting all the deals.
Hey, have you thought about Cool Boys? I need you to go. You're over here Googling a Guillemot backpack.
Exactly. I did buy a Guillemot backpack. I did find one. Yes, I did. It's being imported from the United Kingdom, in fact. I paid way too much for it, and I think it's the most expensive bit I think I've ever purchased. Like, it was a really stupid idea, but man, I looked for a long time online to like find a 3D printable alternative, because like that, I'm way more about that. Like, I'd rather do that than anything else, but I couldn't find anything good, and I'm not going to pay someone to sculpt a new backpack, so. Yeah, there weren't any on eBay at the time, and then like when I was editing the video, one popped up and I got notified, and it was like $13, so I just bought it.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, you're just gonna lie to us about eBay. So I've got another update here. I've been buying more and more big black backdrops, and I can't stop. I can't stop. All right.
Thought you were gonna say something else.
So we got like a big one, like 6 feet by 6 feet. That's feltish, kind of black felt.
Okay, that's a good material. Yeah.
I used some big paper clips to clip that to a big old piece of foam board, so I can kind of set that behind my models. And so, the bigger your black backdrop is, the farther you can put it behind the model that you're taking a photo of, and still have it like take up the whole frame.
Yes.
And that gets it farther away from the light that you're lighting up the model with, and also farther and farther out of focus. So it's just a completely indistinct black morass in the backdrop. So I've been having fun with that. But, of course, as a learning experience, I also bought like an actual real professional black backdrop. And, okay, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, Casey, but it's kind of like a big, again, like 5x5 piece of nylon that's stretched in between this collapsible frame, and the frame collapses into like a hula hoop size bundle. Right. And goes in a bag.
I know what you're talking about.
Okay. So I got my bag that has the big hula hoop full of black backdrop in it.
And now you have a permanent 5x5 hula hoop in your room, right? That you're never going to be able to put away.
Exactly. So I unfold this giant black backdrop, and I have no idea how to refold it. It's just it like pops open, it springs open. It's like a metallic frame inside, and so now I think it's actually like 8x5. Like it's big. It's big. It's actually above me right now. I put it on top of, like, I didn't have anywhere else to put it, so I put it on top of my stupid aluminum framework here.
That's a good idea.
For storage, yeah. So professional photographers and the people who work in the warehouse that sells these things are the only people in the world who know how to fold these backdrops back up.
Right.
It's ridiculous. I was trying to fold this backdrop as just a springy metal that's holding up this, giant sheet of nylon, and I'm trying to fold this into a hula hoop size, which doesn't even make sense. Like, it does not
because it goes into a package like that's a foot wide, basically.
It is a giant metal rectangle, and you're supposed to be able to just like twist it, and it folds up into a hula hoop.
Yep.
And it's mind blowing. It doesn't make sense how it ever got in that bag.
It's never going back in.
I almost killed Snuffles trying to fold this thing. Like I'm twisting it, and then just like springs open, and the cat's running away.
Oh man!
But I'm continuing to learn here. I got another thing. I have these, which are essentially like printer paper sized pieces of felt that have self-adhesive back. So it's almost like a printer paper that is like pure black matte kind of felty material.
Sure.
Very thin. And these are actually really great for setting the model on, like as the surface that you actually put the model on.
What's a good call?
And all I need to do is keep cat hair off of them. And so live and learn here. So this is self-adhesive black, I don't know what they're called, printer paper sized things. You know what I mean. Nobody knows what I mean. Moving on. What else you got, Casey?
It's funny you mentioned the black backdrop thing. I was running into a problem today where I was trying to put my infinite black background further away, and I kept running into the issue where either I would get a light in the frame or I could see just like a corner of the background because it was too small.
Oh yeah.
So like I kept having to readjust because Scott from the Miniac channel asked if I wanted to paint some of the models for his upcoming Kickstarter, right? Mm-hmm. So yes, of course I'm going to do that, and I painted one of them up. It's going to be my upcoming video, so a week from whenever this comes out. But I put it on like a plinth, like a display base, right? One of the models, and they're 75mm display models, and it was like taller than I'm normally used to, and it's taller than my background is, and how long it's. So it's a whole thing because my background is either wide or it's tall because it's a big rectangle, but it just wasn't big enough. So I was just running into issues. I could definitely use a bigger piece
to put back there.
Yeah, that's what I usually use, right? And if I want the black, I just flip it around because it's like black rubber on the other side, and if it's far enough away, it doesn't really reflect or anything. Yeah, so I was just running into problems today. So it's funny you mentioned that because I could definitely use like an 8-foot wide black backdrop.
Yeah. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, as a learning experience, I felt like I had to buy a couple of options and, like, actually use them and figure out what my main is.
Right.
So, tell us about that Kickstarter. Tell us about your elf.
Well, I don't actually know when the Kickstarter... I don't know when the Kickstarter starts.
Tell us about the elf.
The elf. Look, I'm in the middle of making this video. As far as I know, it's coming out before the Kickstarter starts. So go to the mailing list. I'll put a link in the description. That's what it's going to be.
Have you been painting bravely on this elf?
Look, I'm getting there. Yes, I've been painting bravely. Okay. This particular elf that I'm painting, it's the whole campaign is like wood elves, right? Like these evil wood elves. And there's a really cool elf called the Warrior. And he's like basically licking a bloody knife and kind of creepily, I don't know, coming at you, I guess. That's what it looks like. But it's cool. It's a cool model. So I decided that because it's a display model, I might as well try and paint it to a higher standard than I normally would. And I mean, I put some good effort into it. I spent pretty much the entire week on it. It's all the time that I could actually spend on it, up until kind of the last minute. So yeah, it's pretty nice. I don't want to show it. That's the problem I'm coming up against right now. I don't want to show it on the podcast.
Okay.
Because then it would kind of defeat the purpose of like having a reveal at the end of a video. That's a problem when you do a video every other week and you have a podcast. Then it doesn't always line up.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't. Yeah. Okay. Fine. I won't press you about your elf.
I mean, it's technically right behind me. You can see it in this video. It's very tiny. It's very tiny. Stop giving me a hard time. It's not funny.
Okay.
But Scott is doing some video. Going to do some feedback, like we'll critique. So yeah, see if I can kind of push my skills a little bit further, which is cool. Because I've never really done that before. So we'll see if he hates it or not.
The evil wood elves are such a Scott thing to do. Yeah.
Yeah. I purposely gave this one pink eyes too. Just fluorescent pink eyes.
Yeah. Now,
so
you look at these models and you know that Scott made them. It makes perfect sense. Yeah.
It does. But I've been working on that the most this week. And I did get some good glamour shots, so I'm pretty happy with the way things turned out. Yeah. It's been interesting, I guess. This is a good way to put it, because I don't know. I know you don't really go for like the whole display model doing all the stuff thing.
I normally just get bored too early. Like sometimes
Right.
sometimes I have a model that I try to do like a couple more hours of work on, and
Sure.
the thing is, just once it looks good enough, it looks good enough. And so that's awesome that you are trying to push yourself there and really give it the old troll hag treatment,
Right. Yeah. The troll hag. I think I just got lucky, honestly. I feel like that with a lot of like better paint jobs. I'm like, that's right. Yeah, it turned out.
Dear viewer, I have seen the elf that Casey is working on, and it looks good. It looks good. Do watch that video when you get around to it. But okay, so how about I intro what I think the main topic of today is, and then
or
maybe you leave the room. I intro the main topic.
Right.
We switch, and then you intro the main topic. No, we're not doing this. We're not doing this.
No, that's a terrible idea.
Very bad idea. Very bad. Okay, so one of the things I've done in the past couple of weeks is I've released a couple of Army Painter speed paint videos.
Yes.
And the first one was just I had some white models, I had some silver models. I slapped these thick washes all over everything, and just like, oh, the red looks cool. Oh, the purple looks cool, but not as cool as the red.
Right.
That was the first video I did. And at that point, I thought this was just going to be like show off what this new hobby product does, and then go back to my normal way of painting.
Yeah.
And then I did a second video where I actually tried to paint with the Army Painter speed paints. And really what I did is I took black primed models, did a dry brush with a makeup brush, and Craft Smart white craft paint all over them, so that to do the pre-shading there. So black and white undercoat with the white bits being the raised edges, so you get some highlighting on there. And then I went through and just spent about 20, maybe 30 minutes per model putting on the Army Painter speed paint, which is essentially a competitor to contrast paint. And
directly, yes.
Yeah. So I had never really used contrast paint before. I've said before, I think I have a total of 8 bottles, but the price and the pot design both combined make me angry enough that I didn't want to invest more. I didn't want to actually use them. So, but
this bottle is $7.80. It still has the price tag on it.
There's your proof right there, in case anyone didn't believe us. Yeah.
I mean, you know.
The question is, why'd you leave the price tag on? As like a reminder, like
a little bit, yeah. Don't spill this. Yeah, I ran out of it, and so I bought another one. And,
you bought that recently?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Look, if speed paints were already in my store,
I know.
I would have bought that.
Yeah. I've gotten a lot of comments on my videos like, oh man, the YouTubers get all this stuff so early and we have to wait. I'm just like, hey, these will all be out by the time we're watching Top Gun 2 Maverick, you know? Like,
wait.
We've all been waiting years for Top Gun 2 Maverick. And yeah. Sometimes things get hyped way in advance of them being available to everyone. That's just the way it is. I mean, we're starting to see them commercials for Lord of the Rings, the 2 rings on Amazon Prime. You know?
Oh, the actual some of the character pictures came out
today. Pictures came out. That's because like Vanity Fair and a couple other reporters got to see the first few episodes already, 7 months out. So
there's supposed to be some preview during the Super Bowl.
Complain about me getting RE Painter Speed Paint 6 weeks early, you know? Yeah. But yeah, the hype cycle is going. It'll be here before you know it, and even Top Gun 2 Maverick and Lord of the Rings, the rings will be here soon. So the Lords of the Rings.
Oh yeah,
Rings of Power. Rings of Power. Yeah.
That's what it is, right?
Yeah, they gotta hype this up so that I actually know the title of the series before it comes out. That's the key.
I mean, they have the intro that's basically just a redone Game of Thrones intro. They put out.
Wonderful. That Bezos, I tell you. He knows what's up.
I mean, look, they spent stupid money on this, so, you know.
Anyway, while I was hyping myself up with these speed paints, I ended up painting a bunch of D&D background characters just real quick, throwing the speed paints over the pre-shade. And again, I thought it was just going to be one of those things. Okay, demonstrate this technique, show what you can do, go back to painting as regular, but I actually really enjoyed it. and again, like I said, I kind of skipped over the contrast fad just out of pure stubbornness, basically.
Okay.
But I understand why some people really fell into it. Our friend Danny at 3D Printed Tabletop.
That's his go-to only way to paint now.
Is to pre-shade some 3D printed minis and then chuck some contrast paints on them.
I mean, it looks good.
It looks pretty good. Pretty good. It's fun, and man, I hate to say it, but one thick coat actually does speed things up. Even the process of doing a base coat on models. And so, I was thinking about, okay, it's the speed of a base coat. But no, it's actually twice as fast as the speed of a base coat, because for a base coat, you need 2 thin coats. And then you do your shading, and then you do your highlighting and whatever details you're doing. So for half the time it takes you to do a base coat, you can slap on these speed paints, and they don't look great, but they look good. Some of them look good.
It depends, right? It depends, yeah. And same thing with contrast. It just depended on what you were doing,
But anyway, it looks good enough, it was fun enough, easy enough, and looks good enough that it actually qualifies as something that I would recommend for beginners. If a new painter came to me and said, what do I buy? I would present this to them as one of the pathways they could choose. I mean, with the stipulations that, this is not traditional painting. It is gonna look different than traditional painting. But here, check this out. You might like it. I would present the speed paint like starter kit as a viable option for a new painter. And that's kind of what got me thinking about, what do we actually recommend for new painters, and roped into that, what, if our, God forbid, our house burned down, and after we had straightened out some of the other loose ends having to do with that situation, we got back into a painting desk, visited some sort of a thrift shop, got herself a level 2, level 3 painting desk, needed to start putting some paints on there. Knowing what we know now, what would we put on there? So Casey, talk about this situation. You have a fresh painting desk. What do you stock it with to like actually get up and rolling?
Okay. But before I hit that, 2 points that I need to bring up. Okay. The first being like, look, if your house is burned down recently, something happened, we're very sorry. We don't mean it personally. We're just saying it as kind of a point of reference to make this story make more sense. Just throwing that out there.
We're trying to say fresh start. We are sorry for any tragedies that led to you needing a fresh start.
Right. That's
in the previous episode, I said, like, as you're evaluating whether you took your hobby too far, evaluate whether or not you have any bottles of urine next to you at your painting desk.
Right.
And not everybody took that in stride. Like, I upset some people with that. And, I guess we could go the, apology route, but I'm going to go no, seriously, take care of your dirty dishes and your bottles of urine if those are near your paint desk.
I mean, it seems like just a nice thing to do.
Yeah. Tough love here. Tough love.
Right, yeah.
Now, and again, don't mean to step on any toes. I understand that personal tragedies do hit people. But if you, for whatever reason, in a hypothetical situation, you need a fresh start, you're thinking about what is really core to your experience as a mini painter. All right. Out of the way, take it, Casey.
Exactly. Second point after that point is I don't know that I would actually recommend contrast paints to beginner painters. I think there might be some that I would say, hey, you should get these because they're really good for certain things. Like you want to paint bones, you want to paint skin, like there are specific colors that make those things easier, kind of like a wash would do anyways, right? That just a watered down version of a wash. Or something that you can water down is what I'm trying to say. But I don't know, like I made a video a couple of years ago where I brought in my nephews they're pretty young, they never painted a model before, and I asked them to try contrast paints, and the results were like, they were okay. Now, I probably should have done another test with regular paints. I didn't. So, it kind of invalidates my experiment a little bit, but still, like I've seen what people can do, even with regular paints for their first time. Like my wife was also doing it. She's painted a model with regular paints before, and it turned out pretty good. She had the patience to make sure to fill everything in and do this stuff. And her contrast paint one just didn't look as good, even with everything being set up as possible and showing videos of like, here's how you use them and showing them and all these things. But again, some colors I think, like bone colors in particular are perfect for like, you got horns on that guy. Yeah, grab that quick. Just wash them up and you got sweet looking bones like right out of the gate. You do skeletons in 2 seconds with contrast paints or speed paints. But yeah, I don't know. I still think that like a regular set of just model paints, something that's formulated specifically, is going to be a better bet in the long run.
Okay. I can take that.
Yeah,
and that has always been my opinion, and that's what I thought my conclusion was going to be, kind of working with those speed paints, but they were my experience was good enough that I'm like, you know what? I think this makes it just barely into the category of, yeah, I would maybe suggest that a beginner at least consider this possibility.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I haven't used the speed paints yet, and I don't know how different they are from contrast. Like if they're more of like painting with washes, kind of like, but thicker. Because contrast depends, like it depends on the color. There's a lot of differences in consistency and like color and all this stuff with all of them. So it just depends. I don't know.
But yeah, talk about, get into regular paints then. We've said all we need to say about speed paints. Now let's stock up that fresh desk with paints.
Right.
We're talking kind of like favorite brand discussion sort of thing.
Favorite brand discussion, that's even more interesting. Okay, so I should probably mention like
come up with an awesome title for this video, Casey.
It's gonna be as good as the rest of the titles that we've come up with. The other 50 titles that we've come up with.
Well,
see, I thought that we were gonna be talking about like what would you stock your desk up with along with paints. Like, if you knew what you knew now back then, or somebody was like, here you go, here's what you start with.
Oh, we'll get
which includes
paints all the way. Okay, so
yeah,
so we'll do a quickie on paints, and then if you got some other stuff to put in that desk, let's do it.
I mean, that's what I thought we were doing. I mean, I guess it's all the same, really. It's just go down the list of like,
let's do it. Okay, so
what kind of things you should put in your desk. What would I go, like if I had $50, right? Like, what am I gonna go out and buy? You know. Yeah. A set of Vallejo paints.
Yep, that's the answer.
Yeah. That's pretty much
we gotta move this along if you're filling up the rest of the desk here, Casey.
Well, I mean, what are you gonna do? If you're gonna get these 8 to 12-year-old Fart Quest kids painting minis, you gotta let them know what to use, right? You know? Like craft paints only get you so far.
I feel 12 years old is when they might start to be mowing neighbor's lawn.
Yeah,
somewhere there is possible.
I mean, that's basically what I was painting when I really started.
Up until you have your first lawn to mow, you're buying craft paints. Let's be honest. Like up until you're mowing your first lawn, you're on craft paints. Yeah. So.
Man, like when I was 12, I used to go work with my dad, and he would pay me $7 an hour to help him do stuff. Like he's took care of like rentals, so he'd fix houses and basically handyman general stuff, as well as being the landlord. So it was always like, oh, this tenant moved out or was evicted, which is worse. We got to go clean it up, fix it up, right? So that's what I was always doing. I was making money that way, from when I was really young. So yeah, 12 years old sounds about right for like, you could have a potential job. Yeah, like 2 pots an hour, right? I mean, that's definitely how I looked at stuff. It was like, if I work for like 10 hours, I can go buy a video game,
Oh yeah.
Like that was definitely a thing. Yeah, so
no DLC back then. Like you own that video game. You own all of that cartridge.
Yeah. You get yourself a Nintendo cartridge. Yeah, that's right. Let's go back. Oh yeah. It's the good old days. Anyways.
Yeah, man, I had a $20 neighbor lawn. Man, that was a gold mine.
Somebody paid you $20 to mow their lawn. Was it a big lawn?
It's a pretty big lawn, but he's also like a surgeon. So yeah.
Okay.
Pretty good. Yeah.
Fair. Fair. Like $20 in the 90s is at least $50 now.
It might have been 2000, but yeah.
Okay, 2000. It's still, man. It's been over 20 years.
Good.
Like,
yeah.
That's pretty good.
Man, I'd take that right now. Like, just
I know. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying is, like, me as like a grown man, I can start knocking on some neighbors' doors or like, yeah. undercutting some children. Like the kids these days probably mowing that lawn for $25.
Yeah, right. You know, some kids walking by. You got $50. I'll do your lawn. It's $50 now. That's what it is. These kids are smart.
Back in my day, this was a $20 lawn. You know what? In fact, I'll still do it for $20.
I mean, if you could still, if that guy still lives there, if that surgeon is still around, you know.
Have to look him up.
Yeah.
What's it?
Go back to your old neighborhood. Be like, hey, still want me to mow your lawn?
So there are those technical paints. What are they called? There's one that's rust. There's one that's verdigris.
Oh, like Riza rust and Nilic oxide.
No, I'm not thinking of those. It's like an independent company that's selling $20 bottles of technical paint.
Holy crap! Is it Dirty Down?
Dirty Down. Yeah, it's Dirty Down.
Yes, it is Dirty Down.
So. Oh, that lawn is one bottle of technical paint. And that is not what I'm going to suggest people start off with.
No, that's in fact a terrible, terrible idea. Don't do that.
All right. So, Casey, you have just worked for your father for a grueling 8-hour day. You've got some pocket money. What are you putting on your paint desk? Load it up.
I mean, okay. If it were today, then I would be okay.
Knowing what you know now.
Right. Then yes, I would 100% be
and with
going
that
and
are currently
buying
on the market. Yeah.
I'm thinking, are we talking about 20 years ago? It's not going to go very far.
Like, we said we had to make episode 50 almost good and episode 52 and or 53 kind of good because of the symbolism of it. We said we didn't need to make 51 good at all, but okay.
Look, you didn't think we were going to make it past an hour.
You worked for your father to get mad money because you don't have bills to pay. So you get your hobby bucks from the year 1999.
Yes.
You come back to the future, which is now, to spend those hobby bucks on hobby products which have now been invented and are currently on the market.
Am I still a child or am I a grown man yet? I don't understand the exercise. Okay, I'm gonna assume that I'm a grown man and I have $20. For my money, if I'm gonna go and buy paints, then I'm gonna go probably buy Pro Acryl. That's left field. That's what I'm gonna do. Currently in today's out of the paints that I've tried in the last, I don't know, however many years, I've enjoyed Pro Acryl probably the most. They're creamy, they're smooth, they got a good variety of color, and they're not that expensive. I don't know how much they are per bottle, but I don't remember them being that expensive when I bought them.
So there's a pretty good starter set that's maybe 24 paints for $100, I want to say. Somewhere in that vicinity. There's a basic set. I want to say it's 24 paints, and I'm quite sure that it's $100.
Okay, so I just counted. I do have the 24 paint starter. I want to say that I paid $55 or $60.
No, you didn't.
Dude, I swear. I swear I did not pay $100 for that.
Okay, well, I have that same set, and I'm pretty sure I paid $100. Pretty sure. Well, look, we'll go back and check our credit card records from the year 2021, and we'll figure this out now, won't we?
Okay, but if I went back to 1999 and I worked for my dad for 8 hours, that's not enough money to buy that Pro Acryl set.
And Vallejo model color is currently on the market exactly as it was back then.
Right, in the same freaking bottles and everything. They haven't changed for 20 years.
But instead of $4 a bottle, they're $3 a bottle.
That's true. And honestly, if... okay, so if you don't have $100, if it is in fact $100 for that Pro Acryl, then Vallejo model color is just as good, basically.
So that's that's what's on my hobby desk. Is I have basically the two 16 paint starter sets from Vallejo, the one from Model Color and the one from Game Color.
Yeah.
And I have the starter set from Pro Acryl. And that's like what's actually on my desk. And I have assorted paints from other lines farther away from my seat as I'm painting. But,
right, yeah.
Yeah, I think my recommendations for stocking up your hobby desk are Pro Acryl and or Vallejo. Honestly, as a first purchase, I think the Vallejo Model Color 16 paint set is a really good choice. And sometimes it's like the American 16 paint set, because Vallejo has a lot of different sets of paints.
There's so many.
And it is very easy to buy one that's like Desert American 1943 Vallejo set, and you're just going to be working in browns. It's just going to be, you're going to get 16 browns, and you're going to be angry at me. But don't be angry at me. Get the set that has, it's a really good set. It has a great example of everything from the color wheel: black, white, gray, brown, Caucasian flash. Like it's a good one. It's a good.
Yeah, I mean I think that's true. That's one of the better paint sets in general. Like you're not really gonna find technically a better paint set to just buy, just hands down.
And it's normally priced between like $40 and $50 somewhere in there.
Yeah, definitely get that with $19.99 money. Can do that.
That's right. That's right.
Yes, if I knew what I know now back then, then I would have told myself to probably stay away from Citadel paints. And that's not because they're bad paints. Actually, Citadel paints are great paints. But the Vallejo Model Color stuff and the Game Color is just, it's nicer. It's just easier to deal with. Like, it's easier to have laid out in front of you, and little scored bottle here, whatever.
Yeah, I have some 20-year-old bottles of Vallejo that still basically work. Some of them have like curdled a little bit, but
they do get a little like
after 20
thick.
years.
Yeah.
But the 20-year-old, like the few bottles of 20-year-old Citadel paint I have are just rock solid. They're done.
I've got a few of those, but I do have some from the older bottles that were still fine. Like I said, I transferred them into dropper bottles because they were still fine. Perfect. And it was like, I was very happy about that, because then I got to tear off the old little label and put it on the bottle, and it's like the old label on the dropper bottle.
So good.
It makes me feel good. Yeah.
All right, what about washes, Casey? You've got like burrito money worth of washes left over.
We should probably address the burrito sandwich thing, because I don't know, like Brent and I were talking about this just kind of in general. I've always used Subway sandwiches as a guide of like how much something is worth, right? Like, oh man, I can get a subscription to Disney Plus for a Subway sandwich a month. Like, that is totally worth it to me, because it's just one sandwich. Mm-hmm. Now Brent is on the other end, and I think it's probably a better end. He's on the burrito side of things, so one burrito as a gauge.
Yeah. So for example, you got the new Frameworks minis coming out. You got a Frameworks mini for WizKids, a Hero mini for $15. That is more than one burrito, but less than two.
Is it?
So
I would call that 3 burritos.
I'm thinking like Qdoba. You go to a different burrito place than I do. Yeah.
Well, yes, that's true.
That is true.
In point of fact, it's about 3,000 miles away.
We realized that like one of us just didn't hit record today, but
I think it'd be hilarious. But no, we are. It's fine. I still think it's good. We are doing fine. Burritos and Subway sandwiches. I mean, when you start talking about paints being worth a sandwich, it's really starting to put into perspective how expensive that paint is.
All right, Casey. We got some Vallejo paints and some Pro Acryl paints are very likely candidates to be stocking up our hobby desk. What are we doing for washes, Casey? What are we
washes,
doing for washes?
Right. I think Citadel probably has the best washes, just overall. Like you're just gonna want to buy them. Like you pick up your Nuln Oil and your Agrax Earthshade. That's pretty much the ones you really need, anyways.
Get the right ones too.
Yeah, that one's good.
And that way you can get the stupid 3 paint pot holder. And I should just,
That's a good point.
I should swallow my pride. I should just,
choke on
sip
the rinds.
cuck on over to the Games Workshop store. Say, yes, sir. Please sell me this product to improve your defective product. Thank you, sir. And you said it wasn't too expensive, right?
I think
I better buy one of those before prices go up.
That's a good call.
Man.
Good point.
So
actually, this was given to me as a gift by a hobby shop a while back. So it's not, I didn't actually buy this, but I do know that they are like $350. They're basically this the price of a paint pot.
Yeah.
So it could be worse. And it's nice, like hard kind of like silicone rubber stuff. And it works. Yeah. It works. So it's fine.
For washes, I'm still on. For some things, I do like the Army Painter quick tones, quick shades. But for like nice penetrating water-based acrylic washes, the GW ones are pretty good. So
they are pretty good.
Yeah.
That being said, if you water down
reservations about the pots and the prices, but Nuln Oil, Agrax Earthshade, Reichland Flush Shade, fill up a 3-pot stabilizer apparatus, and the extra $350 on that.
Yep.
That's basically a large soda. I don't know.
It's almost $30. Is what that is. That's a lot of burritos.
Yeah, Look, just you go into that store understanding that it's going to be a shameful walk back out to your car after you've given them the credit cards, but you need it. You need it. I think those are 3 washes that you should have. You should have them. I haven't found a company that does it better than Nuln Oil.
Yeah, I haven't really either. I mean the only thing that might sort of be an equivalent, and maybe now that Army Painter has the speed paints, is if their black is decent, like it works like contrast black Templar, because if you water that down or use the medium, it is almost a better version of Nuln Oil. So that is definitely a possibility for some of the speed paints. If the medium works well enough, if it works similarly and makes it a wash, then that's an alternative. That's a good way to go. And I think probably overall still a little cheaper with the medium. If you buy the 3 colors plus the medium. It's probably cheaper.
I will never purchase individually 17 milliliters of paint medium. I cannot do it. I cannot do that.
It depends on the medium, right?
Like I understand that there are some secret little tweaks in there from the liter of paint medium I can buy for the same price from a paint company, but
yes,
I can't do it. There's a bridge too far for me. Like,
all right,
you go do your alchemy with your 50 cent per milliliter paint medium and all.
I mean, honestly, I just use water. Like, they say not to, but it works fine. Just use water.
All right, Casey. Have we stocked our paints up here? What about metallics? What are you doing for metallics?
Ooh, metallics. That's a good one. Army Painter has some pretty alright metallics, so I think you're still safe there. At least the silvers that I've tried. Maybe I'm thinking of something else. No, I'm thinking of that.
I've had one really good bottle of Army Painter metallic, and then like kind of a lot of pretty bad ones. So.
Okay, I'm actually not thinking of Army Painter. I just grabbed it. I'm thinking of the Vallejo Model Air line
yeah,
of
that's different. That's
metallics.
completely different.
Way different, and
That's good.
Nice. Yeah, that's good
good
stuff. The Model Air specifically because it is a little bit thinner, so you don't really need to mix anything into it to thin it, and it goes on so well.
Yeah, I found the Vallejo like regular metallics to be pretty bad.
Yeah, I've never
had bad experiences with just regular metallics, but their air and their metal color line really good, really good. Yeah.
I've had good luck with most of the Citadel metallics. Like, they're fine.
That's actually I really like that suggestion of Vallejo Metal Air as your go-to like affordable like stock up the desk line, because I think you're onto something there. I think that's
their aluminum is just about as bright as the actual Vallejo metal color aluminum.
Yeah.
And it goes on just about as well.
Yep.
Yeah.
I bet those products are quite closely related.
They probably are very similar, yes. They're both formulated for airbrush, too.
Yeah.
They're basically airbrush silvers. I think the Vallejo metal color, I think they're using a different type of powder to make it metallic. I think that's the only probably difference. Like, this is a little bit bigger flake, but it's still not bad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think that's a good way to go. If you can find it, it's a little harder to find. I've ordered all mine on Amazon. So, if they have it in stock somewhere.
In America, that's kind of what you have to do with a lot of Vallejo stuff.
Yeah, that's true.
Or even find a specialty store or like an eBay seller. Yeah.
I mean, love 'em or hate 'em, Hobby Lobby has Vallejo kits and model color generally, including Vallejo metal color, usually for cheaper. They're like $5 a bottle instead of like $8 or $9, because they come in like a 4-pack for $20. Yeah,
that's worth it.
It is worth it.
Yeah. Have my morals in one hand, have $20 for 4 Vallejo metal color bottles in the other, and
it's a hobby
shop. $20. That is the perfect unit of currency. That's
right. That's one lawn's worth of. See, that's the other measurement. If it's not burritos or sandwiches, it's how many lawns did this cost me? That's just $20.
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah, give me that green. It's $20. All right. Okay, so if our starting paints after a tragic accident, house fire, are Vallejo, generally Vallejo paints.
We got your Vallejo 16 paint starter set, America, but not American Desert or like American Air.
Not one of those specialty kits. The actual starter kit, yes.
Check it to make sure it has a lot of sweet colors in it.
Right, a lot of sweet colors you probably find. It's not just the how to paint tan and off tan.
All right, there's your paints. What about your washes, Casey?
Citadel washes, because most hobby shops are probably going to carry Citadel paints. You're probably safe getting that.
All right, what about your metals, Casey?
Well, okay. If you can't buy online, I would still go Citadel. If you can buy online, then all of the stuff is just on Amazon. So do that.
Okay. All right.
The metal color, air, whatever. Model air. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got it. All right.
What about if you're trying to I don't know, you're spending a little bit more. You're like, you want that pro krill. Maybe you got an extra lawn's worth of money, couple burritos. Like, would you spring? Would you just say, hey, you know what? I'm going to actually just invest in pro krill?
That's an interesting question, because there are people out there right now who, been watching internet shows, listening to internet podcasts. There are people whose first paint set was pro acrylic. What a world we live in. What a world we live in.
That's a great way to put it, man. I envy those people.
I still think you have to start with Vallejo. I think, yeah.
Well, okay. That's fair. It is fair. just as a left field, I bought the Scale 75 Artist Series. I bought a couple of sets of those.
Okay.
Hands down, best paint I ever used.
Okay. I've never tried it. Cool.
It's worth it.
Are they like cheaper than anything we talked about today?
I think they're like at least double the price of everything else.
Okay. All right.
But there's I don't know. I have to check how many milliliters of paint are in there, but it's like probably 10 bottles worth at least. There's a lot of paint in each of the tubes because they come in metal tubes that you actually, like art paints, you have the little top and you squeeze the metal tube and the paint comes out. So they're pretty fancy. And yeah, like I don't know what it is about them. They're advertised as like creamy. They say that creamy and smooth and all that.
Very nice.
And they feel like that. They actually feel creamy, and they blend creamy, and they're just it's like a cloud of paint. I don't know. I like it. They just feel good. It's a weird thing.
I will have to try those. Finding artist paints that work for our purposes. I like it. I like it.
Yeah.
I mean, like the idea. I like the idea.
The kind of crappy part about it is if you go to buy artist paints, which will totally work for painting models, like Golden or whoever else sells a bunch of good paints at craft stores, like they're more expensive than, model paints. Like if you're going to go buy a Winsor Newton acrylic, like they're like $12 for a bottle. And yeah, that's probably going to last you your entire life, but if you're going in to buy 24 colors, that's going to start to add up pretty good. Yeah. I'd be buying, 3 sandwich paint.
You're going to be harassing the Michaels clerk to really get those coupons on it. No, we're not. We don't go down that path. We got to bring this home, Casey. We got to bring this home.
Bringing it home. Okay. So
right, we're at 1 hour and 12 minutes, Casey. What are we putting in this? What are we putting in this desk, Casey?
I mean, what kind of brushes would be your go-to? Multi-pack
synthetic. Always.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
And I'll buy 150 brush for dotting eyes. Yeah. I'll buy one expensive Da Vinci or whatever for putting the irises on eyes.
I'm still kind of on the fence about brushes. Like it's really tough for me to recommend cheap brushes. Because I've gone through a lot of brushes, right? And they've always been cheap. And when I switched to like a Winsor Newton, right? Series 7, all of a sudden I went from having to buy brushes every month to I bought one brush in 4 months.
Sure.
Like, so the cost difference was definitely in my favor. I spent $15 on the brush, but I also probably saved $30 or $40. Like not buying more brushes. So it's really, and honestly, it was a better, like I could paint better. It was just the tip lasted and it didn't curl. It didn't go weird,
Yeah.
So
there's definitely a difference in like the springiness of synthetic versus natural hair. And
for sure.
I have developed an affection for I guess it's more stiffness, more stiff and springy, I guess, of the synthetic. So I like that when I'm using like a wimpy little natural hair brush and I touch it to the bottle and it just like the hair just all folds over. What am I even doing here? Like
that's the cloud, man. That's what I'm talking about. That soft little cloud, Well, you get that creaminess and that softness, and it just goes on so good.
I want that mechanical
the rock hard
spring of bending back and propel that paint forward.
Right, you're pushing those bristles into the model. You're really getting the paint in there. You know what I'm saying? You just. Yeah.
My suggestion for brushes are a multi-pack. Don't get the $3.99. Don't get the $2.99. You get the $3.99. That's what I'm saying. Not budget barrel.
It's the golden Teflon number 4, right?
Look through the clear plastic on the multi-pack and make sure there's some nice looking tips in there.
That's true. You got to make sure.
If you're in the $4, maybe $5 range for a multi-pack, and you see that there's at least a couple of brushes in there that look like pretty pointy,
yeah,
that's a match made in heaven. You found a winner. Yeah, that's what you want.
That's true. I mean, look, they're good if you can find a good one, and yeah, maybe they'll last you a few weeks.
Mm-hmm.
It's so hard. It's so hard to recommend that, man. Like, I can't do it. Like, oh yeah, my brush. I mean, I used to buy Citadel brushes. And man, like, that is a stupid idea. 'Cause they will go bad fast. Sure. Like, as fast as the synthetics. I mean, they are synthetic. But they go bad. I did actually, the brush that I bought the most, well, I guess the least technically, but the one I wanted the most was the Citadel glaze brush. The glaze brush, for some reason, was awesome. Like, it lasted longer than all the other brushes that I had from them, and in fact, I still have some. I have like one right over here that I use sometimes. It's like, I'll just pull it out if I'm doing something. It's like it's in reach, you know. So
I have a little collection of brushes that I've gotten with paint kits and stuff, and so I've got some Army painters and some like Vallejos. I probably even have a couple of Citadels of fresh, brand new, basically expensive synthetic brush. Yeah. I have a little box of them, and there they sit, all fresh and brand new, because I'm like, oh man, I'm not touching them. These are special, and they'll also stop working after a week. So I'm just gonna keep using the 50-cent brushes. I think it's fair for us to disagree on this. I
sure.
I buy synthetic brushes because I like using them and find them to be decent value, and you do the opposite for the same reasons. Yeah.
Probably the better thing to do if you really are new to painting, or if you've never tried one or the other. Like, I'm sure you've probably tried synthetic, but buy one of each and try it out. See how it goes. You never know what you're gonna like better. Like, I just happen to like the softer bristle natural hairbrush. I don't know. Okay. It just works for the way that I like to paint.
Yeah, because you don't like to stipple, or
I do like to stipple. Just gently though, gently like a cloud.
It's so flimsy.
No, but the tip is so precise and stipply and perfect.
All right. All right. We got our brushes. What else are we doing?
So we got paints, washes, brushes.
Mm-hmm.
I think we already sort of covered models. Like, go to eBay, find half a box of a starter that's cheap. Yeah. I think that's a great way to start.
There you
honestly.
Go. Boom.
I think we kind of covered
Nailed
that. Right? I think we might have. I was gonna say something else. Now I can't remember what it is, but that's fine.
I mean, I guess you could get a palette, or you could just get a paper plate.
I mean, a paper plate, man, I find myself using, because I use a wet palette, right? But then I have a piece of construction paper that I use to kind of wipe the brush off to do whatever, and I end up filling up a half a piece of construction paper that becomes a palette. It just becomes one.
Yeah.
And I don't even mean it when I have the wet palette next to me, and all of a sudden I'm using this stupid construction paper to do stuff. And I don't know. So that totally works. Paper plate, construction paper, whatever. It all works. I mean, I used a dry palette for years, and that was fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the last thing you need is a paper towel holder. That's the last thing you need on your. Yeah, dude.
Paper towel holder. You mean as a hobby desk item?
But also you can put a roll of paper towels on there. Yeah.
I mean, you don't need a holder to stand up some paper towels.
It so good.
It does. I have one. I do have one. Literally right over here. It's a paper towel holder. I spent money on that.
Yeah.
In fact, my paper towel holder is a 2-piece magnetic. Yeah. Goes on the side of my shop things. So it's super industrial.
Real good.
It works good. I even have a glove dispenser a magnetic glove dispenser.
Okay, that's nice. That is nice.
It is nice. Yeah, because I don't have to find the box ever. If I'm 3D printing, I just, walk over, pull some gloves. No problem. Yeah, that's
Dude,
right.
For like a decade, I worked in chemistry laboratories, and we never had a glove box holder. That is
Really?
Never. No, we just had like boxes of gloves, on the lab bench or whatever. But
okay, yeah.
That's actually pretty. We also just had piles of paper towels on the lab bench. Huh. Well, hey, we all live and learn, right?
Oh, yeah, I mean, sure, yeah.
Dang,
sometimes our hobby setups.
Man, I'm just thinking of improving my 3D printing space right now because there's just like a box of gloves on the floor right now.
You're just like, I don't know where to put these things. The floor, that seems fine. Like, all right, that's fair. Like, I see it. I got a lot of stuff on the floor. I mean, that's just how it goes, Yeah, I mean, as far as like generally starting out, if you were to start over, I think we kind of got a good amount of stuff. Like, I don't really know what else you would want to, like, would you actually buy a 3D printer first thing and 3D print models instead? Like, if you had the money and you weren't gonna, like, I'm not playing Warhammer, I'm not doing this, I'm gonna do like D&D models or whatever, would you actually just go buy yourself $100 3D printer instead?
That's a tough question. I
never even thought about that before.
Man, that's a really interesting one. If you, again, the house burned down scenario.
Right, all your models are gone. And you're like, I gotta start over.
But let's say you were smart enough to have a hard drive backup for your
cloud backup, 100%.
Terabytes of 3D print files.
Yeah.
That's an interesting one. We'll save that one for later.
That's interesting. Well, if you are listening to this, then
I'm not against it. I was getting ready to say, like, are you crazy?
But then you kind of
buy any models, you can get a 3D printer. But I'm not against it.
Interesting. I mean, yeah, you can pick up one of those like mono 4Ks with the big plate for a couple $100 these days. That cat is going nuts. I don't know. Maybe that is a topic for another day. That's not bad.
Look, we need to come up with a better topic for episode 52. That's the
52, the clip show from the first 2 years. No. That's not what we're going to do. We're not going to do that.
Well, on that note,
thank you again for joining us on another episode of Paint Bravely. If you enjoyed this podcast, please help us out by leaving us a review on iTunes, subscribing to the YouTube channel, and sharing this message with your hobby friends. And as always, we appreciate each and every one of you for listening, and we will talk to you next time.
We appreciate you. Talk to you next time.